Hello and welcome. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today's video is sort of your fault, if I can put it this way. So you may remember we made some videos where I had to fly a circling approach or a visual approach, and I always complained that on a 2D screen the visibility is just not as great as in a real aircraft. It just doesn't compare. Now I do have a VR headset, but unfortunately my computer is just not fast enough to allow me to use VR in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I use it for DCS, that runs absolutely fine. I also have Virtual VR and Project Wingman. And of course there are some amazing VR games out there that I absolutely love, like Moss and other things like that. So that's what I use my VR headset for. So a lot of you have left a comment saying, why don't you use head tracking? But I've always been a bit skeptical when it comes to head tracking. I just don't see how this could work, because if I move my head, how can I still see the screen? So I don't know, it's not something I really ever took a good look at, but I decided, you know what, so many of you have talked about it, have suggested it, why don't I just give it a go and see how I get on? And that's what we're gonna be looking at today. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I did was I downloaded Beam Eye Tracker. There's two reasons for this. First of all, it was highly recommended by a lot of people online. It is 20% off at the time of making this video, and they give you a free demo which gives you 180 minutes for free. Plus it has very positive reviews, as you can see here. So I thought, you know what, let's try and give this a go. So I'm showing you some footage here of my first experiments. I used a YouTube video for the settings, and I have to say it was a bit of a mixed bag. It felt a bit jerky and not smooth, and I almost had to move the camera with my head. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I didn't feel like I moved my head and the camera moved with my head. It felt more like I had to move my head roughly where I wanted to be, and the camera would then follow. And the problem with that is if I wanted to look at something specific on the flight deck, like the MCDU, I would really have to move my head slightly left, right, up, down to get the camera exactly where I wanted it, and then keep it perfectly still so that I could actually use the MCDU. So my initial reaction was not that great, I have to say, not that positive. I could see the benefit of looking around the cockpit. That felt really nice. But it felt like this is more for, fooling around in an F-14 or something, but not for a serious flight where you actually have to use the MCDU. For that, it just didn't seem precise enough. To give it a fair shot, I also used it in Euro Truck Simulator, and there I have to say it actually worked a little bit better. It was still a bit jerky, and I found it a little bit disorientating sometimes, but all in all I felt that this was where this could really work really well. So driving simulators, I felt, yep, this is where this could be very useful. So after a while I had pretty much used up the 180 minutes, and just by experimenting around and doing some test flights, and I still felt it wasn't quite there, and I was just not prepared to spend the money on something I probably wouldn't use all that much, if at all. But whilst I was watching all these YouTube videos that gave me guidelines on how to set it all up, I stumbled across some videos that said that you can do the same thing absolutely free. So I decided to have a look at that and downloaded the software that I was told I should download, and then I wanted to see if that's any better, or it just gave me a bit more time to play around with it, because there's obviously no time limit, and if it works then great, because after all it's free. So I used two pieces of software. One is called OpenTrack and the other one is called AI Track. And those together are supposed to be the best option if you want free head tracking. Okay, so this is now with the software version of head tracking. I've spent a lot of time now trying to get this right. I mean, it's still not very smooth, it has to be said, but I do think it's a little bit better than what I had before. The main thing is that I can move my head now only a tiny bit, and I can already see the overhead panel, and I move my head slightly down and I can zoom in here to the MCDU. But as you can see, it's still super sensitive. Like, I am not moving my head whatsoever, I'm just talking, and that is enough to make the camera jump around. So I'm not quite sure how useful this is going to be flying airliners. Looking ahead is fine because I put some dead point where, you know, it doesn't react to any movement, so that seems to be okay. But other than that, if I want to look at a specific switch and zoom in, it's actually quite difficult to keep the camera still, and I cannot find any setting that, you know, prevents that. The smoothing is on maximum. I've done everything I can. I'm keeping my head as still as I possibly can, but it's still jumping around. So if you want to then move one of these buttons, like if you want to switch on the nav lights, you have to get the click spot just right and be quick. Yeah, so not sure if this is really worth the effort. It doesn't seem to work too well, at least not here on my setup. Now, having said all that, the one instance where I think this really works well is when you fly a fighter jet like I do here now. In this case, I think this is actually a huge improvement over just using your mouse. I can just look around, and because I don't have to look at specific instruments and press specific buttons, I have a lot more freedom, and I can just move my head and, you know, look at the HUD and then look outside and enjoy the scenery. And I think for this, I would say head tracking is perfect. I'm sure there's some other games where it works really well as well. So I'll probably keep the freeware version, to be honest with you, and I'll probably use it to just, you know, when I do things like this, where I'm just on my way to the pyramids, just to fool around a bit. For this, it's actually really nice, and you can see here, it's actually not too bad in terms of smoothness. Maybe the glass cockpits of modern airliners are just a bit too much for the whole thing. Am I 100% convinced? I would say for airliner flying, not so much. It seems too twitchy, too difficult to actually get to a specific button. You have to keep your head dead still, and even then the camera keeps moving around. As you can see here, somehow these are the same settings as before. It just seems to work much better. Maybe it has to do with the fact that I have much higher FPS when I fly the Hornet compared to the A380, so maybe that plays into that as well. In any case, I would argue that for this kind of flying, it is super nice. I'm actually really enjoying this. But for airliner flying, I think I will stick to the mouse. And maybe one day in the future, I will have a computer system that is going to allow me to fly VR, because I mean, ultimately that's the highest form in terms of immersion. At least in my opinion, I've had 2 headsets already, and there's certain games I wouldn't even dream of playing without a VR headset. Another thing, of course, is this is not going to be very good for making videos. It's too jerky, it's too restless. I don't think you would enjoy somebody making a video like this. But apart from that, yeah, it's good. It's good. So in the F-18, it works really well. I'm gonna try it out in the F-14 as well, because you gotta fly the Tomcat once in a while. It's the law. And yeah, let me try something else quickly. Okay, we are back in Euro Truck Simulator 2, which seems to be one of the most popular games when it comes to head tracking. Let's jump back into the cockpit. And yeah, so this to me is much better than a mouse. It's a bit too sensitive at the moment, but if I can actually do this now, and it's nice and stable. Yeah, this is great. So this is an improvement. Now, I'm not gonna say that the freeware version is much better than what I had before, the payware version of head tracking. It just happened so that on my system with these settings, it just works a bit better. So I'm not gonna say to you, oh, get the freeware version, it's better. This is not what this video is about. I've tried both. They both have their drawbacks, you know, advantages and disadvantages. But all in all, you know, I'm happy with this one. So I think when it comes to ETS2, I'll probably use head tracking now most of the time, if not all the time, because here it seems to work. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, like I said before, airliner flying, probably not, which is, to be honest, what I do most of the time. But for anything else, I think it would work quite well. So I think that is my conclusion. I'm gonna test this with some other games. I don't actually know how many games support head tracking. I'm not sure if any of the train simulators support it. That would be kind of cool. Let's see. I mean, this is free now, so I just keep it on my computer. I will experiment with it. I will try it out. Thanks for suggesting all of this to me. I was aware of it, but I was very skeptical about it, and I never really thought about using it. But given that so many of you have talked about it and recommended it, I finally decided to give it a go. And to be honest with you, I have a feeling this is gonna stay on my computer, and I'm gonna fiddle around with it going forward. Okay, and that to me is probably the conclusion of all of this. Okay, and with that we have reached the end of the video. I hope you found it useful. I hope it was interesting, my little journey here. I thought I will document everything because you've suggested this so many times. I thought I owe it to you to actually try it out and to show you my personal experience. Okay, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, all the best. Bye bye.